everybody. Such a pleasure to be with you again. And this is, as I say, as always, my favorite segment. And I like telling stories about my wholesome vegan baby here. Today we are going to talk about this interesting recipe, which is called the miso laksa. Miso laksa. Okay, can you see this? Yeah. So very tempting, right? Yeah. So this miso laksa, right, has also a long story to tell. It traces back to my childhood, basically. You see, I really was very interested in food since I was very young, basically. Of course, I didn't get to go into the kitchen until I was like maybe 15-year old, something like that. That is when my mom was a bit worried that I was going to be overseas and I have to cook for myself and all this. So when I stepped into my age of 15, my mother started to get me to train in the yeah, train in the kitchen. And like, training is not proper training. It's just washing and cutting and garlic and onion, I tell you. And once in a while she will tell now, okay, because that time I wasn't a vegan just yet, she will tell me that how you marinate the pork, how you actually should treat your shrimp, how you actually should treat your mushroom and all. So it was interesting actually in my early days, and I don't mind spending that quality time with my mom in the kitchen, seriously. It's one of my memorable so-called good old family bonding time and all this. But I tell you, this miso laksa go beyond 15-year-old. I remember my mom is a good cook, definitely, no doubt. I tell you, she's such a good cook. And she's creative as well, definitely. So this miso laksa actually stemmed from a very basic idea of no, it stemmed from this so-called this dish my mom cooked for us when I was 9 year old. 9 year old, yes, I can still remember. She cooked a very nice curry chicken. She that day she told us this curry chicken is different curry chicken. It doesn't have coconut milk. It doesn't have the conventional ingredients in there. It is a dried base. It is a dried base curry chicken, and she said that this is called the Taiwanese curry chicken. And then we were asking, why mommy is called Taiwanese curry chicken? I thought curry chicken is like for the very Malaysian thing. But she said it is by Taiwanese who actually reinvented the Southeast Asian curry by actually having taojiu, which is fermented Chinese fermented bean paste mixed into the curry to thicken it instead of using this coconut milk as a thickener. I was thinking, wow, that's so brilliant. 9 year old. So I was really thinking, you know, cooking can be very creative. It doesn't have to be boxed up in a square box. So from there out, it was tasty. That time I wasn't a vegan. I remember that tasty, this so-called bean paste based curry chicken. Having said that, please do not go and cook this curry chicken, okay? I'm a vegan teacher. Please give some face. I'm not here to propagate curry chicken, but I'm just telling you my real life, my childhood time. Um, um, I have to embrace my past. I wasn't a vegan last time. I just have to be honest to everybody, and I enjoy being non-vegan, and I enjoy being vegan even more. And I always tell people, you know, vegan or not vegan, it's about our own inner heart. When I was younger, when we are younger, we do not know how to think for ourselves. But now I'm a grown up, and I know what is better, what is not so good. So I decided to reinvent myself to a better self, even though in my family background I was taught to eat meat, and I should never have that kind of resentment against my family that they want me to eat meat. I still love my family. So, and it's just that I shouldn't keep on blaming my family history for educating me on a non-vegan path. And in fact, I'm grateful that they brought me up, and now I can think for myself, and I know what is the better for future for myself. So I decided to go vegan. So basically, in this story, I was telling you that this miso laksa actually traced back as old as 9 year old, basically. So, and along my career of being a vegan teacher, and I always avoided to teach laksa. You know why? Because laksa is such a common dish, and if I were to teach a laksa, right, and there are so many different variety out there, and it will never be perfect because everybody have a different perception of nasi lemak, laksa, and whatever kueh and all this, which is very common and all this, and exactly because of that I avoided I didn't want people I don't want people to to complain oh teacher when you make this vegan it is it's lack of certain taste so I didn't want to hear of that kind of thing so avoided to teach laksa until one of my students uh, she came from Manila she came from Manila, and she came to Malaysia to learn on a private tuition with me. Yeah, one-to-one private tuition for 1 week, about 6 days, and every day I teach her how to cook vegan. She's already a vegan that time, and in fact she's a very good vegan chef, and she wants to upgrade herself and all this. Also with the support of nourishment theory and all this. So she said, Kiyu, why don't you just teach me laksa? I like Malaysian laksa very much. And because of her, because she's not a Malaysian, so I thought, okay, I'll teach you, I'll teach you a laksa. But but that time, then only I started to reinvent this laksa. I decided not to go for normal laksa because it's so uninteresting. If you want a normal laksa, you don't have to learn from me. You just search online. That's what I tell many people. Okay, so I decided to reinvent this by bringing in my 9-year-old that Taiwanese curry chicken concept, and also because I like nyonya very much, and a lot of curry out there is very liquidy and very so-called thin and all this. Not very thin. After adding the coconut milk is thicker, but I want something very, very thick. I want a very thick curry, and which is nyonya curry. So I also like nyonya very much. So I actually read quite a few, I think a dozen or more nyonya recipes. And then I do some kind of, you know, rewiring looking at the ingredients and all this. And because a lot of this so-called curry, they require this so-called garlic and onion, which I must avoid because I'm a Buddhist. And also, even though I'm not so strict on the garlic onion, but I want this book to be readily acceptable by Buddhists and also the so-called Jains and some other Indian kind of religion and all this that they don't take garlic and onion. So I took away the garlic onion and the taste is gone. So I have to re-engineer it to compensate and all this. And where do I get the umaminess? And I also wanted to avoid the coconut milk, which is controversial, which is actually not that bad anyway. It's not that bad. So and I know there are a lot of soya base. I didn't want that also because in the vegan community we are getting more and more abusive of soya. There's nothing wrong with soya by the way, but it is more like day in and day out we're taking way too much soya. So I didn't want to make people to eat even more soya. So I decided to have my miso laksa here today without soya as well. I mean, there's still soya, soya tofu inside, but I don't want the base to be soya again. So I don't just basically, I mean, want to really, really minimize the soya usage. And then also, and of course the miso is soya already. So no, because I haven't had the idea of putting miso just yet that time. I just didn't want that. So I thought, if I don't want to put coconut, I'm not going to put soya. And of course, some curry, they put cashew, which is very tasty. But I have another recipe which is cashew based already anyway. So no, I don't want that. So, and then I remember the 9-year-old recipe, So, okay, so tauchu, but tauchu, so not many people are so-called. I mean, if I want to push this book to overseas and all this, Teochew, not a lot of Ang Mo know it, a lot of Westerner don't really know. But if I say miso, miso is basically the same thing as Teochew, which is just a Japanese version and more refined and more so-called upgraded version of the traditional Chinese Teochew or bean paste. So I decided to use miso. So and that's how this miso laksa come by. And one thing very very interesting is the what? The sambal in there. There's a sambal. I tell you because the curry we want to go with sambal, right? and I decided not to do the sambal the normal way. No, not at all. Because they really cook them on the fire for very, very long until the oil is spoiled and all this. Um, it's tasty, but I didn't want that. So, and then I decided to put on a thinking cap. Okay, I really want it to be totally different from the normal sambal. I do not know how, ask and you shall be given, and the universe shine the light on. Okay, since I'm using miso as my base for my laksa, why not I use my miso as my base for my sambal? And quickly, I'm going to dig out my favorite genmai miso, and then I put in the curry powder, and of course, usually sambal they have onion as well to make it sweet. So I decided not to have onion, so I add in a little bit of molasses sugar to sweeten it. And of course there must be oil, and I decided to use cold pressed oil and do a raw version of it. Can you believe it? And I sometimes I know it's like self-flattering. Sometimes when I look back on my own recipes, right, I was wondering how did I actually come up with such a brilliant idea? I'm sorry to be so self-flattering, but but I'm just telling you the joy. I'm just telling you the joy of being a vegan and creating and inventing recipes by observing, recipes from the traditional recipe and think out of the square and let sky be the limit and toggle all the factors and all this and uh, and that's how you get a vegan version or even a healthy version. And also for your information, in the traditional laksa, we always have this fried so-called fried bean curd tau pok. Okay, but I know it's fried. It's not good. I always tell my student, don't ever fry and all. Of course, I still take fried food when I go outside when I have no choice. But at home, I told my student, if you're preparing your own meal, don't even think twice of trying to fry anything for yourself at home. No, 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 no fried stuff. So I decided not to use the tau pok, which is the fried bean curd. Then, uh, then I decided to use this frozen tofu. How you do the frozen tofu is that you buy a hard tofu and then you freeze it up in the freezer. You freeze it up in the freezer. And then the next day, and you thaw it, and the structure of the tofu change and it become a lot of porous kind of honeycomb structure inside. Yeah, and this honeycomb structure will mimic the function of the tau pok, which is a fried bean curd that can actually soak up. Yeah, that's the reason why people put tau pok into curry because they want to soak up the gravy of the laksa. So I don't want to use tau pok, so I use a honeycomb structured so-called frozen tofu to soak up the juice. And it works equally well. And it's so healthy. So I hope my story actually lend you some light, to give you more so-called so-called more way out, to think of how to reinvent your recipe into a healthier versions and continue to enjoy food without meat. Thank you so much. See you next time.